What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovatar, back for the third, the final, I suppose, probably the last Dracula's Curse video that I'm ever going to upload. Not as if I don't have enough, I suppose. This is a run where I am only playing as Syfa. I said in my previous videos that Syfa is, in my opinion, the least interesting of the three companions. She is really interesting to play as, just because she has 3 spells she can use, and the decision of which of those spells to use can occasionally be interesting. She's more just fun to play because it's just interesting to play the game as like a character who's not Trevor. And I would say Syfa is unique among the 3 companions in that it's fun to beat the game playing only as her. Grant in the US version is kind of frustrating to play because you're relying in a lot of cases on his like short-range knife stabbing attack. JP Grant is a different story, of course, although honestly even JP Grant is kind of like... Well, anyway, Alucard I think would be a nightmare to try to beat the game as because he just can't do any damage. So like trying to kill bosses would probably be like an issue, would probably make the time limit like a legitimate issue. So that's why I decided to only do a video like this for Syfa. Further explanation, this is a no-hit run. That means I don't get hit, I don't take any damage, I don't die. But this is also segmented. And what that means is this is being done in 3 parts, where if I die in the middle of one of those parts, I can go back to the most recent one. For example, this is the first segment is going to be level 1 through level 4, the second segment is going to be level 5 through level 7, last segment is going to be level 8 through the end of the game. So like, if I take damage on level 6 or something, I would just reload a save state from level 5. So this is not like a legitimate, 100% not like a legitimate run. I decided to go with segmenting the runs instead of doing a single segment run, just because of it struck a nice balance between like like 100% save scumming, like just using, like if I were to segment like every individual level, for example, I don't think I would get much of a sense of accomplishment from doing it, but doing a full single segment run would be kind of like prohibitively difficult. I could do it, I think, if I was willing to invest more time. I think I probably could do it. But the thing about that is that, you know, the word could is dangerous. I should talk about this a little bit, actually. This was pretty tricky, to try to get, do the Skull Knight in such a way that I never took damage involves kind of baiting him over to the left first, and then finishing him off from the right. And that was tricky because he turns around like faster than you would expect him to, and he can move kind of faster than you expect him to. And also that move that I did where I jumped on that higher platform and then jumped over his head is like pretty close. Like sometimes he's just not far over to the left enough for you to actually jump over his head. So that was a surprise. That was the first surprise that I encountered in the run, was that no damaging the Skull Knight boss is actually kind of complicated. Usually what I do there on Trevor is I just throw holy water at him from above, but here obviously that's not an option. So for most of this run I'm going to be using lightning, but for a few set areas I'll be using fire and freeze. I think fire is... I mean, all 3 of Syfa's spells are good, but I would say freeze... Lightning is the best one, and freeze is like the most interesting one. And I want to say something about that torch back there that I whipped when the... That was pretty slick. That I whipped to kill that skeleton, is that in Densetsu, in the JP version of Dracula's Curse, that torch has a knife in it, which on Syfa the knife and the axe both become the fire spell, so that little like mid-air move is something I could only do in the US version. That's not why I decided to pick the US version ultimately, but that actually was kind of a factor, because I didn't like losing freeze. I want to have freeze to kill these owls before I pick up the first lightning, which I'm going to hold on to until a certain stretch during level 7, I think, is when I'm going to swap out lightning for freeze briefly. Lightning is the thing that makes Syfa overpowered, in my opinion. Freeze is also really good, and Freeze has some neat utility, which I'm going to be demonstrating mostly in level 7. But Lightning, 3 balls, each ball contact does about like 2 whips worth of damage, which is why what I'm about to do here, it one-shots the turret, because what happens is if you're that close to an enemy when you use Lightning, all 3 of the lightning balls will hit it at the same time. This is a move that I call the shotgun. And I only really use it on turrets in this run, because closing that much distance with enemies that don't just stand still and attack in set intervals, which is what the turrets do, can be pretty risky. If I wasn't concerned about taking damage, or if I had bigger balls, or if I was better at the game, I'd be shotgunning like all over the place. Like there are a couple of bosses you can kill really fast with the lightning shotgun, but oftentimes the position to pull that off is very like specific. With turrets it's nice and easy because they're not moving, and you can just get right up next to them. Anyway, I feel like I was in the middle of saying something and then I got interrupted by like 5 different things. Let me think. Yeah, I was talking about the companions. Talking about, so yeah, segmenting. Yeah, I take back what I said earlier about, like, I could have done a single segment if I wanted to, because that's the kind of statement that I think should be avoided, just because it's very easy to say, like, oh, I could do this if I felt like it. So I'm actually going to retract that statement. Because you could just apply that to anything, you know what I mean? It's not about whether you could do it or couldn't do it. Every human being is possessed with the biological tools to complete any given, like, video game challenge, notwithstanding, like, you know, reaction time or something like that. So what's noteworthy is not whether you can or whether you could do it or not, it's whether you actually did it. Anyway, this part was actually pretty tricky. Or this, like, could fuck me up pretty easily, because all it takes is a spider coming down while a lightning projectile is still in the air and I can't fire a fresh one, because that's the one limitation of lightning, is that you can't just spam it. If there's still a lightning projectile on the screen, you can't fire a new lightning, which is actually going to become an issue in level 4. Here, lightning is definitely the best tool for safely fighting the Cyclops, because you can do exactly what I'm showcasing here. Sometimes lightning misbehaves and doesn't go where you want it to, but usually on the Cyclops fight, what can happen in the Cyclops fight is that, like, you can jump and shoot lightning and it'll go down at a certain diagonal trajectory, and then he'll, like, move in a way you don't expect and you'll miss him. But there it worked out pretty well. I hit him almost every time that I was trying to, which is all you can really ask for. So level 4, the theme of level 4 is going to be demonstrating the other limitations of lightning, because as I've said, lightning is overpowered. Lightning is overpowered because it can do a lot of damage, and because it homes in on enemies, and in almost every Castlevania game, the toughest enemies to deal with are evasive ones. Ones that, like, fly around like bats or birds, and lightning just completely solves that problem due to the fact that it's homing. However, there are some quirks of lightning that can become issues, and it mostly involves what I mentioned before about the fact that there can only be, if there's still a lightning projectile on the screen, you can't shoot a new one, which can be an issue, as you'll see shortly. Okay, so these red skeletons have there's a problem with lightning and the red skeletons. The red skeletons, like, regenerate after they collapse, and you'll notice that the lightning projectile, like, kept orbiting around them even after they'd been killed. That's because the lightning projectile doesn't know that the red skeletons are in, like, an inactive state at that point. As far as it's concerned, the skeleton is still there, and it's, like, rotating around trying to hit it. So that can put you in, like, a tricky situation in that particular spot, because you can't use any more lightning projectiles until the ones on the screen are gone. But if ones on the screen are just, like, impotently moving in circles, then you can't, like, safely clear out the upper level, you have to do something like basically what I did, which is use Syfa's default attack to like clear the way and just hope that the lightning hits the upper skeleton and gets him out of the way too in time. So that's pretty frustrating, but that's really the only thing about lightning that makes it balanced. So there's a mini-boss coming up here, and this is a boss that you can actually kill really quickly with a lightning shotgun if you pull it off right. But the problem is that the boss kind of like moves forward sometimes, like he kind of like shuffles forward, and so that can make the positioning for the lightning shotgun like tricky and inconsistent, so I didn't really want to risk doing that. Instead, I decided to sit up here at this vantage point. If the snake is horizontal, I jump. If the snake is diagonal, I duck. But the problem here, as you may have already noticed, is that lightning seems to be having a very hard time actually getting to him. This is because when he shoots those rings out of his eyes that petrify you if they actually hit you, lightning seems to think that those are enemies and that it can damage them. So what's happening here over and over again is that I'm shooting lightning right as he's firing off his eye beam, which is causing lightning to like swerve down towards the rings and hit them instead of hitting him. And so that boss fight that should have taken like, you know, that took like 3 times as long as it was supposed to take. And honestly, after that fight, I almost thought about just resetting the run because of how bad that is. Because if I had just varied up my lightning timings, like the reason that kept happening is because I just kept like shooting lightning on the same timing that was overlapping with his eye beam. If I just changed up the timing, or if I just waited until the eye beam was over, then the lightning projectiles absolutely would have hit him, but I was just like stuck in this rhythm of only wanting to use lightning when I was jumping over a snake shot, which fucked me. So yeah, I almost thought about resetting, but I eventually decided, fuck it. I'll just keep going. If I'm not going to shotgun anyway, then maybe it doesn't really matter how good that fight is. This room is always, like, a crapshoot on Grant or Trevor, but if you have Syfa with lightning, she can clear it out pretty easily. This next part, though, has the same problem that it always does, which is, what you want to do there is you want to get to the bottom of the stairs, turn, and shoot lightning. Problem is, shooting lightning, like using sub-weapons, involves hitting up and B, and when you're that close to a staircase, hitting up will send you back up the stairs. You have to like go down the stairs, then walk forward a bit, then turn and use your sub-weapon, or like use lightning, which gives you a pretty small window to actually intercept that bird if it's coming right at you. So here, lightning completely shreds the mummies in this arena, because you can sit off to the left, and the lightning projectiles will either home in on the mummies or home in on their wrappings, which are like on the same horizontal plane, so you'll pretty much always hit them. That's actually a really good way to consistently no damage to the mummies. And level 4 is to use lightning. And I forgot to mention this in any of my previous videos. The mummies are harder on US Dracula's Curse than they are in JP Dracula's Curse. In JP's Dracula's Curse, the wrappings will just come out like straight horizontally, either high or low, so they're way easier to like dodge or intercept. But in US Dracula's Curse, they wave up and down, which makes dodging them really tricky. The reason I was down at the corner like spamming lightning into nothing was just to like use up hearts, because this is like something that I saw speedrunners do. Although there I fucked it up because I was like busy emptying hearts while the orb had already spawned. So it's just wasting time, even though I was doing something that was supposed to save time. And this is the first break, the first segment. Going right into level 5. More shotgunning. This was really risky. That one right there was something that I only went for because this was at the very beginning of a new segment, and if I fucked it up, I could just reload. Which is the benefit of segmented runs in the context of like a YouTube channel. I feel safe to go for things that look cool. I already kind of talked about that in my previous videos, but I just wanted to bring that up again because that turret kill is a great example of what I'm talking about. Although, and here, however, I guess this is too far into the segment for me to want to do that again, because I feel like I could try to, like, shotgun that knight. But I don't know. I would if this wasn't a no damage run, because there's a meat right there, and if I get hit, I could just heal it right off. But, oh well. So I think, I don't remember what, so there's a freeze spell in one of those torches, and freeze, one of the things about freeze that's good is that freeze can kill things that are otherwise unkillable, like freezing and then shattering a blood skeleton, for example, will actually permanently kill it. Freezing and shattering one of those fuzz balls that wanders around, like sticks to things and like moves around, like down there in the previous stage, or in the previous room rather, those things can be permanently killed by freeze. There's a freeze tome in the same room as those like fuzz balls, and there's lightning in the last room of 5B. So in some of my early attempts, I actually picked up freeze in that room back there, to clear out the fuzz balls and make that room a little bit easier. But the thing is that the lightning that's available in the last room of 5B, which is coming right out of this auto scroller, is kind of like far out of the way, and you have to deal with more enemies in order to get to it. And because like lightning is just as good at dealing with the auto scroller as freeze is, and because all you need to do to avoid the fuzz balls in the first room of 5B is just like do a couple of good jumps, I decided to just hold on to lightning and not bother with the sub-weapon switch up. Yeah, if you want lightning from 5B, you have to go on the lower path in that gargoyle room, which means dealing with more gargoyles, which for Syfa can be tricky because you're either at the mercy of lightning trajectories and lightning timings, or you have to try to hit them with your staff, which is fast but shorter range, so there's a margin for error there that doesn't really exist if you're just using Trevor's Whip, in my opinion. One other thing that I should also note about the Japanese version of the game, and this is actually like probably one of the biggest selling points of the JP version, is that in Densetsu, the turrets and the knights have less health. Like in US Dracula's Curse, the turrets take 6 hits, in JP they only take 4. So the way that translates into lightning shots is in the US Dracula's Curse they take 3 lightning balls to kill, in JP they only take 2. And the reason that I'm jumping up here and jumping up back there is so that way lightning can home in on both targets, because otherwise what tends to happen is like one lightning ball will hit the turret and then the other 2 will just like wander off screen. If I'm keeping them both on the screen at the same time, though, lightning will home in on both of them, so that just saves hearts, and I am going to be using a lot of hearts to kill the boss at the end here. So heart count was something that I was conscious of. This is another boss that you can kill really quick if you shotgun him, but that's really risky because at that point you're stuck in front of him. Even if he doesn't like walk into you at the start, you're now stuck like right in front of him when the rocks fall. And so unless you like get the perfect like double shotgun on him and kill him immediately, then you're at a pretty big risk of getting hit. So it would have been nice, but oh well, it was too risky. I love just hearing the sounds from Dracula's Curse. Man, the first time I played this game, like the first time going through this game was so much fun. It's fucking incredible. Fucking music too. Man, I love it. This game is so fucking good. So 6B, I think I didn't get much of a chance to talk about 6B in the Grant video. Syfa with lightning makes it easier because you can clear out the birds, but there's a little bit of an opportunity cost issue with lightning on 6B that doesn't exist, that exists only with Syfa, which is that if she gets freeze, which I could have gotten there, she can actually freeze the river and walk on top of it. And I think that was something I thought about doing, because this part is, like, notoriously tricky. That, particularly the point where you have to go through the waterfall from the water that's flowing to the left over to the water that's flowing to the right. That's a great place to get killed or get attacked by fishmen. And I think freezing the river strategically would fix that, but lightning was just, like, too useful to get rid of, because lightning lets me take care of that knight safely and lets me... Okay, that's another limitation of lightning right there. Sometimes lightning thinks that things that aren't enemies are enemies, and sometimes it just flies right the fuck past enemies like they're not even there. Like, that middle lightning ball went right underneath the hunchback and just, like, didn't see it. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, lightning is really good for this part here. For killing turrets from a position of safety, whittling down knights from a position of safety, but more importantly, honestly, is that lightning is just better at fighting the boss in this level. And there's not another lightning until level 7, so maybe, like, freeze probably would have worked just as well for a lot of 6C. The problem is actually not the turrets or the knights, it's the boss at the end of the level, which you really want lightning for. I think I lost some... excuse me. I think I lost some runs to that guy, which is why I was, like, fighting him so cautiously. Like, only shooting lightning when he was in the process of throwing an axe and, like, basically guaranteeing that I would intercept it. This part was so frustrating, because, like, the same shit that happened with the hunchback would happen here with lightning, where I would shoot lightning at the birds, and the game just wouldn't... It just wouldn't work. Like, the birds just wouldn't get hit by lightning, which defeats kind of the entire point. Yeah, this part is also pretty scary because the fact that lightning is to a large extent out of your control, so I didn't necessarily always know when fishmen were going to get killed and then when new ones were going to spawn, so there I just kind of had to take it slow in a couple spots. So lightning is really good for this boss for reasons that should be obvious. The thing about this boss that's difficult is that you don't know all the time where he's going to be until he's there, and then you have to, like, try to close distance to hit him while also dodging the fire. With lightning, you can just stand anywhere and hit him from anywhere and do a ton of damage. So definitely the better solution than trying to use fire, even though fire would probably kill them pretty fast. Yeah, the Hydra boss in level 6 is kind of a big fat pain in the ass. Now I actually am going to pick up Freeze. Level 7 is very nice because there's a lot of areas where Freeze is useful in level 7, but then they let you get Lightning right before the level 7 boss, which is very appreciated. Thank you, Dracula's Curse devs. As you saw just now, the first use of Freeze is to kill that fuzzball, so that way when I'm waiting for the platform to come down, I don't have to constantly, like, jump up and down. But there's going to be a couple more uses later on. One thing about Freeze that I should note is that if you kill enemies by freezing them and then shattering them, the enemies aren't going to drop anything. Now, that's actually good in a sense, because it means that they're not going to, like, randomly drop a fire tome and, like, fuck you up with a random drop that you don't see until you're already walking on top of it. But it also means they're not going to drop any hearts, so if you use Freeze consistently, you have to think a little bit more about your heart supply than maybe you otherwise would. And this is the Hunchbacks doing their favorite thing, which is to spawn a copy of themselves when you freeze them. That seems to happen every time there. I can't explain it at all. But it's consistent at least, so I know to expect it. Know to expect it, knew to expect it. Whatever. Yeah, as this was actually kind of scary to do because, like, I didn't realize how long the range on Freeze was, and you'll notice, like, the freeze, like, animation barely reaches these turrets in time to freeze them, and to freeze the fireball, so that was kind of not a great feeling. to use freeze to kill those things, but hey, it was faster than killing them with lightning would be. Well, I guess I should say it wouldn't actually be faster because I could just shotgun them, but whatever. I want freeze mostly for a thing that's going to come up in a second here, not this part. This is my least favorite part of the game. There are some parts of like the Alucard route that are more aggressively badly designed, but that jump right there is like... It's one of those jumps that's like so precise that whether you make it or not feels like RNG. That's just my opinion. Yeah, this is the part that I wanted freeze for, because those red whip skeletons that just don't die, sometimes they just hit you. Sometimes you think you have like enough distance on them, sometimes you... And as you can see, their wind-up is really fast, so if you come in here with lightning and you're trying to like use lightning to take out the birds, sometimes lightning will get confused and orbit around the disabled blood skeletons, and it like won't hit what you want it to hit when you want it to hit what you want it to hit. So freeze is actually just like more consistent there. You gotta be careful about jumping to not because I'm jumping up there because you only start to break down the blocks you're standing on if you stand on them continuously. But you got to be careful about jumping in that auto-scroller, or any auto-scroller, because if you jump and the ceiling is too close to you, you can jump up into like the kill zone and die. That actually happened to me a couple times in a couple of attempts. So this Monster Mash, which is what I call any of these boss fights involving multiple bosses, this three-man Monster Mash here goes pretty badly because lightning just seems to have a very hard time finding the mummies. I guess what must be happening is it must be homing in on the projectiles instead of the mummies, but that really only explains like the lower orb in a lot of these cases. That was so fucking close, and that's exactly why I'm standing up here to shoot lightning at them instead of going down there and hitting them more consistently, because shit like that can happen. Where wrapping just like perfectly weaves through 2 lightning balls and almost hits me. Scary as shit. But if you look back at that like mummy fight, like every single time I shot lightning, the top lightning ball would just like fly off into nothing, and so would the middle one. So I really don't know what all was going wrong there. Here, I think I was hoping to try to shotgun the devil, but for some reason, he doesn't seem that receptive to shotgunning. I don't know why. It's possible I'm not close enough, but I don't want to get that close to this guy, is the thing. Here, I'm saving lightning specifically to react to the fireballs. And I guess I end the fight with just the correct amount of hearts, which was surprising. I was slightly worried about not having enough, because as you can see, like the number of hearts it takes to kill the mummies, and to a certain extent the Cyclops can be variable, because like lightning sometimes just doesn't fucking hit the mummies. The Cyclops sometimes just fucking walks away from you and just doesn't get hit by lightning balls. It's like, it's very inconsistent. Anyway, here we are in the home stretch. Last segment. Level 8 to the end. And level 8 on Syfa is actually really tricky because of just some of the ways in which the enemies are arranged. And also, what's going to be unique to this run is that I'm going to have to actually fight the Grim Reaper on Syfa, because Syfa can't just cheese it with holy water the way Trevor can. Which I was a little bit worried about, but which, as you'll see, I was able to find a solution for. I really don't like this part. I remember wishing that there was a better way to get through that part with the knights, but there really isn't. Especially because like lightning for this room is really nice, because you can kill the spiders and the sword dudes at the same time. And then look at that shit. That top lightning ball just swerved back to the left and took out that spider before it could hit me. So like that's why lightning is so good. Lightning helps you out in ways you like don't even mean for it to help you out in. Hit it. Whatever. I hate those little green blobs, by the way. They're not as bad as the ones in Simon's Quest, but they're still very annoying. The reason that I'm, like, playing so scared around these Actinites in general is because from the very first time I picked up this game to the very last day I ever played it, I was getting fucked over by the knights doing their, throwing their axes low. Like, if a knight throws an axe high, all you have to do is just attack and intercept it, but if they throw low, you have to, first of all, mentally register that that's what they're doing, then duck and attack, and I was always just so bad at doing that. It was like I was always a little bit too slow, or I'd fuck up my inputs, like, just ever so slightly. So I was always super, super careful around them after I lost a couple runs of them. Okay, so the Grim Reaper fight. Like I said, I was worried about it, but apparently, if you stand on this top right block, the scythes that the Grim Reaper summons can always be intercepted by Syfa's cane. Or at least that was always the case in the practice that I did. That never, like, didn't work. Yeah, here, that second lightning was kind of like an autopilot, like, bad idea, because I knew that was going to happen from my practice runs. I knew that the lightning gets confused if the skull isn't, like, right in front of it, and it tries to hit the other blocks, but I just did it anyway. I just forgot. Oh well. And then phase 2 is just a simple matter of, like, getting enough damage in with lightning so that you don't have to do any particularly complicated movement to avoid him. Now, 9-1 is a gigantic pain in the ass on Syfa, because you have to get way closer to the Hunchbacks to kill them. The secret with the Igor Gauntlet in 9-1 is that the Harpies will always drop them within range of Trevor's whip. However, they will not always drop them within range of Syfa's cane. So, on Trevor, if you're playing as Trevor, like, getting through this is a very simple matter of just turning towards where they're going to be dropped and then just whipping them on the correct timing when they drop into your whip. With Syfa, I have to also walk towards them to close the distance before I can intercept them. So, this is a lot scarier and a lot more complicated on Syfa. And I can't just lightning all of them because, number one, that's, like, inconsistent. I don't always know if I'm going to have lightning available. And number two, I want to use lightning a lot in 9-2. And I don't want to farm hearts too much in the lead up to that, although I am going to do so here just a few times, I think. Not much to say about this. Is that getting picked up? Oh yeah, it's getting picked up. Man. So 9-2 on Syfa is really just kind of a test of patience. Because if you go into 9-2 with Syfa, with Lightning, you have a tool to clear out what is one of the most dangerous stages in the game, with, like, perfect safety. Like, with Lightning on 9-2, you can clear out all of these turrets without ever putting yourself at any risk, because you can hit them from anywhere. The caveat, though, is that you also have to be worried about... You have to be thinking about the gargoyle spawns. And optimally, what you would do is try to line up your lightning casts with the gargoyle spawns. Ooh, that was pretty close. So that way you can clear out the gargoyles and hit the turrets at the same time. And I think that's what I'm doing here. Yeah, that seems about right. Or I'm sneaking in a couple more. I guess I snuck in an extra one there when there weren't any gargoyles, just because I was pretty sure that I could. But giving a lot of respect to the gargoyles and just being patient and whittling down the turrets one lightning shot at a time is the safest way to get through 9-2, in my opinion. Not necessarily the most exciting way, definitely not the fastest way, but I think it is the safest way. And as you can see, I'm like almost out of hearts, which is why I didn't want to use too many in the 9-1 Hunchback gauntlet. I'm just enjoying the music. I better not enjoy it too much, or else this video is gonna get fucking flagged for copyright. All my like C1 and C3 videos always get flagged for copyright. But at least those claims, at least those are like accurate, because the claims are at least saying, oh, you stole the song Beginning from Owned by whatever music group, which is, I'm guessing, the actual song and the actual company that owns it, not a company that owns some random cover of the song that some random person did, and that YouTube's stupid copyright robots thinks is entitled to tell me whether or not I can put it in my video. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I don't have much to say about 9.3. The vertical auto-scrollers in Dracula's Curse become less interesting the more you play the game. They're pretty scary when you first play the game. But once you know where the enemies are gonna pop in and where to be, it's more just like you're just sitting there waiting. Okay, so no Grant and no Alucard means that I'm gonna have to actually do 9-4. Fortunately, wow, that was pretty close. I was expecting that lower lightning ball to hit the fish man that was coming through on the bottom there, but instead that did not happen. I had to emergency cane him. Fortunately, Syfa with lightning is a great tool for 9-4, and I thought about using freeze instead, because you can get freeze in 9.3, and then I can pick up lightning in the torch up here for the doppelganger fight, because I do want lightning for the doppelganger fight. But getting freeze in 9.3 is actually kind of risky. You have to go pretty fast through the auto-scroller if you're not using Grant or Alucard. And I was so used to doing 9-4 with lightning at this point that I just wanted to hold on to it. I didn't want to complicate things any further. And I didn't even really know how good freeze would be. I guess probably pretty good, because the thing about 9-4 that makes it so hard is the fact that your movement is constantly getting fucked with, and freeze would be pretty good at dealing with the birds, I guess, but I don't know. I was always kind of skeptical of that. So the doppelganger on Syfa is pretty easy. You just get up on this ledge at the start of the fight and then just shoot lightning down at it. And because the doppelganger doesn't understand height, it will sit here and try to whip at nothing until eventually it gets hit and dies. Sometimes you can end up in situations like this, where the lightning orb just fucking goes around in a circle until the end of time. I think what I'm trying to do here is get the cane to hit the orb. Okay, there. I thought about transforming back into Trevor for a second there, because transforming into Trevor would get rid of the orb, but I was like, well, if I turn into Trevor, then it's not going to be Syfa only, right? Even if it's just, like, to get rid of this one, like, technical thing. I didn't want to do it. And ultimately I didn't have to, so good for me. A1. I already talked about A1 twice in my previous videos. Just in case you guys didn't watch that, I'll explain it for a third time. Stay towards the top of the screen. The Medusa heads will fly up into the no man's land and kill themselves. before they ever get to you if you do that. Be careful about that part at the very end, though, because like with the level 7 auto-scroller, if you jump too much while you're waiting for those platforms to collapse, you'll hit the top of the screen and you'll die. That lightning shot on the turret, by the way, was so lucky. Like, that was so great that all 3 of the lightning balls all went down and hit that turret, because that meant I didn't have to stay on that staircase and try to, like, balance shooting lightning orbs at the bat and shooting lightning orbs to kill the turret. It just died all at once. I would love to say that was planned, but it was not. That was just kind of how it worked out. This is scary. Okay. Did I spawn a second one? No, okay. Sometimes if you let the red skeleton with the whip chase you too far over to the right, then when you come back over to the left, a second one will spawn. So it's a little bit worrisome. But look at that shit. Did you see that? That's exactly what I'm fucking talking about, man. Lightning is overpowered. Like, it's definitely the best, like, tool in the game, but sometimes it just doesn't fucking work. Especially here, when it's trying to hit the fucking pendulums, because for some reason it thinks the pendulums are, like, enemies it can damage. Okay, that was really close. I actually should have waited a little bit longer, but I didn't. Alright, I don't have to get any triple shots, and I think I'm good on hearts. No, okay, I guess I want a few more. 32 should be... Really? More? Maybe, I feel like this is excessive. Maybe my past self knows more than I do. Because I'm gonna go in now with like 38 hearts. That feels like more than enough. And I'm picking up fire, because, Phase 1 of Dracula is something that I want to go exactly the same every time, and lightning is allergic to consistency. So if I want to be absolutely sure that Dracula is going to take the amount of damage that I want him to take in all 3 of these phases, then I have to use fire to make sure that happens. The second reason that I don't want to use lightning has to do with, Phase 3, but the consequence is that lightning, which would be fucking great for Phase 2, I don't have, so I'm forced to use fire instead. Definitely a downgrade. Lightning is, like, good for Phase 3 if you're doing a slow kill, but for this footage that I collected, I didn't want to do any slow Phase 3 of Dracula kills. I only wanted to do fast kills. Lightning looks like it would be good here because you can sit in any position you want and just shoot lightning at him and it'll hit him. The problem is that lightning loves to try to hit these floating platforms. It's exactly the same problem that I talked about before, where it doesn't know what's an enemy and what isn't. And it tries to hit, and it like orbits around the platforms, and sometimes you can be stuck in Phase 3 of Dracula with lightning, just like waiting for the lightning balls to finish orbiting around nothing for like 10 seconds, and you just fucking sit there for so long, and it's so boring. So, the biggest reason I picked up fire for the Dracula fight was honestly Phase 3, even more than Phase 1. And it makes for a much more exciting kill. Although that's not something that I would do if this was single segment. If this is single segment, I would just take my time with the boring, obnoxious lightning strats, and just accept that my last phase of Dracula kill would be really terrible. Because it's the best way to make sure you don't take damage. So, that's Syfa only. Honestly, not that fun. Well, I mean, it's fun, but it's really only fun as like a novelty. Because to me, the thing about Dracula's Curse that makes it special, that makes it like uniquely incredible in the Castlevania series, is the emphasis that it puts on strategic thinking and important decision making, where you have to decide like what tools you want to use in what situations at what time, and like you have to know about like sub-weapon availability, and like you have to take full advantage of your companions and things like that. With Syfa, like you spend most of the game just spamming lightning. And anytime that I ever thought to myself in like throughout the middle of the game, like, oh, could I use something besides lightning here? Like, I could never justify it. It just never made sense to not use lightning. So the only thing Syfa has going for her as far as like strategy goes, is which of the 3 spells to use at what time, and 90% of the time the answer is just use lightning, idiot. So Syfa only is like fun, is like an interesting little challenge to do, but I think it kind of doesn't have the meat of what makes Dracula's Curse great, which is that element of routing and planning, etc., etc. So ironically, even though like a conventional Trevor/Syfa run would be a lot easier, I think it would actually be more interesting because you would have to think more about it because there would be more decisions to make, more tools you could take advantage of if you had both Trevor and Syfa. Like, for example, in 9.4, like, I wanted Lightning for the Doppelganger, but if I did want to use Freeze for both halves of 9.4, I could do that if it was Trevor Syfa, because Syfa could use Freeze for 9.4, then Trevor could use the Holy Water for the Doppelganger. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I got more videos coming, more games to revisit. Keep an eye out for those, and keep on Earth rocking.